Prophet, his line of nourishment is the breastfeeding. Again, it does not mean that the child gets any type of food or table. He says, it is sufficient to remove the impurity of this child's urine that it is sprinkled. As for the female child, Bulugh have holding the deal. Her urine is just like the urine of elder individuals. It is to be washed with a washing. Even if she is a young girl and she herself is still breastfeeding. So what is important here is that we understand that there is a generality and there is an exception. The transition from the generality. The generality is, as mentioned by Sheikh, what they mean for knowledge, that there are 4 conditions that will come from the front private part of a male. Again, there are 4 conditions. This is important because as Sheikh Saleh has mentioned, whenever you have an issue of knowledge that is enumerated, the enumeration that is associated with that topic or that subject is just as important to the subject matter itself. So what does this mean? If we say that Tawheed is 2 categories, look at scholars that say that Tawheed is only 2 categories. And there are some that say that the Tawheed of Allah is only 2 categories. The Tawheed of Rububiyyah and Asma wa Sifat are joined as one. And then there is the Tawheed of Uluhiyyah or the Tawheed of Ibad. This is the worship of the servant. So some of the scholars, the Tawheed of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is only those 2 categories. Then there are some of the scholars that say the Tawheed of Allah is 3 categories. The category of Rububiyyah, there's a category of Asma wa Sifat, there's a category of lordship, there's a category of the names and attributes, and then there's finally and thirdly a category of the worship of the servant, or the Tawheed of Uluhiyyah. Regardless if you say it's 2 or 3, if you are trying to understand Tawheed, you have to understand that there is a enumeration. Regardless of whether you go with 2 or 3, is not the emphasis. The emphasis is understanding what is the enumeration. So if a person said the enumeration with me is 2, in order for them to encompass and fully understand the affair of Tawheed, they must know they cannot go beyond 2, and they must excel up to a maximum of 2. Then you know that the enumeration of a topic is just as important as the topic itself. Because if the individual says, I've only learned 1 degree or aspect of Tawheed, Tawheed is not complete. If the individual understands that Islam has 5 pillars, but they only understand or know 4, your understanding of Islam is deficient. So the enumeration, understanding that it's 5. If you want to understand Islam completely and its pillars, you have to know, you have to get to 5. When you are dealing with anything that has an enumeration, the enumeration of the topic itself is just as important to fully understand the subject as the subject itself. So for the affair of Tawheed, again, if you do not fully embrace 3 categories, if 3 is what you identify, but you're only aware of 2, you're not fully going to understand Tawheed. If you only understand that Islam has 4 categories and there's a 5th that you are unabreast of, your understanding of Islam is going to be deficient. If you understand that there are pillars of the prayer, regardless if you say they're 13 or they're 14, at the very of the scholars, But you say, I only know 10. There's no way you're going to understand the Salah completely. In order for you to understand the Salah completely, if it's 13, you have to understand 13. The only way you're going to get to a complete understanding of the Salah is if you understand 13 unlocks the Salah. 5 pillars unlocks Islam. 3 categories or 2 categories unlocks Tawheed. So what becomes important now? The enumeration is just now as important as the topic. Because without understanding how many, how much, how many limbs of Bulugh, you will be deficient. So going back to the statement of Shaykh Yameen, he says there are 4 emissions that come from the frontal private part of the male. If you are only abreast of 2, when you see the 3rd, you'll be confused. If you see the 4th, you'll be confused. Which means what? You will be ignorant of your own body religiously. So Shaykh Yameen says it doesn't escape the order 4 categories of what is emitted from the frontal private part of a man. We have them listed here. The first, urine. Oh, Najis by consensus of the scholars. The scholars are in agreement that urine from the human body, regardless if it is male or female, is impure. It must be removed from the 3 aspects that concern every individual that wants to pray. It must be removed from your body, for 1. It must be removed from your garment and your clothing, that's 2. It must be removed from your place, your direct place of prayer, that is the 3rd. And as a sidebar, it does not have to be removed from the entire place where an individual is in prayer. It has to be removed from the places that the individual that is praying directly touches. So what does this mean? If an individual is praying in the park, in the yard, or in the street, and there is some urine, there is some feces, that is clearly impure, and it's 2 feet to the left, or it's 2 feet to the right, or it's 2 feet in front of where you would prostrate, or it's 2 feet behind you. That is not the direct place of your prayer. It does not impact the soundness of your prayer. What is important, what impacts the soundness of your prayer is the direct place of what you touch, what you engage in. When you pray, when you touch the floor. And we know that there are 7 bones that must touch the floor when the individual is praying. And in addition to that, for the women, more so than the men, but the men as well, the garment that may float and that may exceed the body length. So the man may be praying and he has on the khutbah. So there is going to be an emphasis beyond the 7 bones. The woman may be praying, and now the emphasis of the excess garment or attire of her garment, of her imam, of her niqab, whatever the situation may be, that the individual is not concerned. That takes the ruling of the place of my prayer as well. Because what? It is attached to the person that is praying. And that is one of the 3 aspects that must remain pure. So the individual says, well, my 7 bones that touch, they touched that which was pure. However, my garment fell upon something that was impure, it affects the status of your prayer. Just like the Masjid of Allah, was praying with the companions one day, and he took off his salah, and he took off his shoes during the salah. And the companions made themselves, they did the same thing. And the Prophet, he was aware of this situation of the companions, and afterwards he questioned them and he inquired, why did you take off your shoes? And they said, O Messenger of Allah, we saw you take off your shoes, so we took off our shoes. And the Messenger he said, he said, as for me, Jibril came to me. فأخبرني أن في نعلي قدرا. He said, he informed me that upon my shoes, on my sandals, there was something of impurity. In one narration, it mentions qadar. In one narration, it mentions adab. Then there's something that was hard for the shoe, indicating that if there is something of impurity upon the garment of the individual that's praying, it must be removed. This lets us know a condition for the acceptance of your prayer, your garment, your attire, anything that takes the ruling of garment and attire, whether it's a sandal, whether it's a baseball cap, whether it's shoes, boots, it doesn't matter. If there's attached to the individual in the line of garment and attire, it must be pure for you to pray. So, Sheikh Uthaymeen, rahimahullah ta'ala, he lists for us there are 4 things that come out of the frontal private part of a man. The first is bowl, it's urine. It is najis, it is impure. The ijma' and ulama, by consensus amongst the scholars. The scholars are in agreement, hands down, that urine from mankind, male or female, this is the point of emphasis for this conversation, for this hadith tonight, inshallah, that it is najis, it is impure. The second article, it is sperm. As we have here, or madi, and there is some difference in whether madi or mani is actually the appropriate term. However, as we mentioned in this class, because we are utilizing the translated work from Dar es Salaam, they have madi translated as sperm. For sake of conversation, we're leaving it as is. Where everyone else that would like to take a different course, you would not be opposed, you would not be rejected. However, for the sake of the class, of clarity, so let's there be some momentum and smoothness to the work without extra clarification. We're going along with what is translated in the work. So don't be surprised and don't be alarmed if some individual, they come to you and they say, no, actually, madi is semen. Yes, we can have this conversation. But that's not what's translated in the word that we utilize. So for the sake of simplicity, to keep it as is. If you want to go further down the line in your own investigation, or if you hold personally that term applies to the other wording, then that is your preference. There is no harm in doing so. But for the sake of conversation here in this class, madi is being referred to as sperm. It is impure by consensus with the people of knowledge. Madi. Wadu is a fluid, and I have been looking, and considering that mankind is deficient, no faulty, my review has not allotted me a translation of this in the English language. However, this terminology is there. Wadu is a white water. It comes out after urination. As mentioned by the people of knowledge, most of the time during the cold seasons, during cold weather. It is a white water, I would say Latin in general, but when it comes, by the time you understand and you are aware that it is present, you understand because of the rutuba, the wetness of it. But by the time you are aware and you actually have consciousness of it, it's dry. So if you have seen that at the tip of your frontal private part, especially during the cold months, there is something there that is cloudy. And you know this is not urine. You know that this is not nadi, because nadi is accompanied by sexual desire. And the individual says, I just came from class, I just came from work, I've been busy about affairs of this dunya, of this life, no sexual orientation at all. I went to go use the bathroom, and I realized some minutes later that there was this cloudy emission, and it was dry. That is wet. It is najis. It is impure. It must be removed. And as mentioned by the people of knowledge, there is consensus amongst them as well that these first three, O, urine, medi, sperm, as translated here by the word, and wadi, all three are impure. The issue of mani, which we have here translated as semen, is an issue of khilaf. It's an issue of difference amongst the scholars. Now,
we will give you guys to answer the question that I had. Considering the generation of Aisha, of their lifetime, she was scraping all the semen on the stoves. And I'm saying to myself, well, how could it be? Well, it could be framed with that. And she's turning him, and he doesn't go throw it over again. She just scrapes it off. So logically, I'm going to think in the issue that is not necessary.
this is a line of thought that is sound and it has been tread by people of the knowledge prior to yourself. This is a sound course that has been tread by the people of knowledge prior to you. Which means that, or it lets you know that this is sound reason. To give you an understanding, how could it be impure? And then there is the other side of the conversation. Whether you would agree with it or not. For one, the position held by the people of knowledge that this is an emission that comes through the same track that urine does. So by logic, by reasoning, that if this emission is coming through a track that is the track for impurity by consensus, they say by default, it must be impure as well. At the same time, another line of thought that they hold is that there are certain narrations that clearly indicate that from the methods that was utilized to remove it was water. Not just the scraping. Scraping when it was dry, washing when it was wet. Based off of that, with the majority of the people of knowledge, the jamhur, the majority of the people of knowledge, with that, they hold that water is the main and only course to remove impurities. Unless it's mentioned by narration as something else suffices. If there's nothing by narration that says that dirt purifies the body garment of a woman, if there's nothing by narration that says that this dirt removes the impurity from the dog's saliva, the asl and the basis is water. Based off of narration, there's an Arab that came into the masjid and he urinated in the water. And the Messenger of Allah, he told them specifically what to utilize. So that is one of several narrations that highlight water. There are some of the people in knowledge that, if you would say, have taken that understanding and ran with it, meaning that water and water alone is the only course to remove something of impurity, unless it's mentioned by narration. If not, nothing else suffices. So this is something that, because when you go back to this conversation, there are some wordings of the narration that Aisha or the Aisha, she mentioned specifically. When it was wet or when it was moist, she used to wash it away. And there are some that mentioned when it was dry, she would scrape it away with her. So the side that said she washed it, it shows you. it is impure. But by text, we will allow you to scrape it and just drop within the text that says that can be done. Other than that, wash it with water. So there is a discussion for both sides on how they view and how they argue to manage their position. These are situations for all of us to take all of the rules, all of the texts, take all of the principles that we understand and we have awareness of at our disposal, with the discussion from the people of knowledge, to finally assess and ascertain where you lie. If you are at that level, there are some people that might say this is well beyond you. We would say in this situation, ask the people of knowledge or remembrance, the scholars, if you don't know. This is by narration what you are supposed to do. If there are some individuals that say, I understand some of this discussion from the book of purification. I understand what is the basis of everything in here. Pure. And I understand that nothing becomes impure except by text. And that this is not a method of logic reasoning. Because it is only for Allah and His Messenger. As Abu Talha announced to the people during Mina, that إِنَّ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ يَنْهَيَانِكُمْ عَنْ He announced to the people during the day of Mina, Allah and His Messenger have prohibited. Meaning what? Prohibition is for Allah and His Messenger, not for you and I, but for Allah and for no matter what level of knowledge we attain or acquire. Making something impure when the basis of everything is pure is a ruling. And that ruling belongs solely to Allah and His Messenger. And this is why Shaykh Yameen, rahimahullah ta'ala, he said both parties are incorrect in what they may view. And who are these two parties? If there is a party that says that something is permissible in terms of an act of worship without text, they are wrong. If there is a party that says that this is prohibited in terms of worship without text, they are wrong. But he said one is worse than the other. One is worse than the other. Because prohibition is greater than allowing an individual. When they both come from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but the prohibition is greater. So to circle back, inshallah ta'ala, the first three are impure by consensus. The fourth one is an issue of khilaf. Tonight's narration, the narration of Abu Sa'id, gives you an exclusion, an exception to the rule that the bowl, the urine of a young boy that has not eaten, that is still breastfed, Yuroshi. His urine is only sprinkled and sprayed with water, which signifies that there is impurity. Because if there is a matter of cleansing and purification, it signifies what? The task. It signifies impurity. But it is a lesser degree of impurity than the impurity of a boy that is beyond being breastfed and that eats food. And it is beyond the impurity of a young girl that is still breastfed, that does not eat food. Her urine takes the ruling of the urine of an elder man or an elder woman. No exclusion, no exception with the urine of a young girl that is breastfed. The exception is with the young baby boy that is breastfed that predominantly does not eat food. That is the exception to tonight's narration. And why is this important? Because this chapter clarifies by title, Habul Yameen wa Bayaniha. This is the chapter of clarifying impurities, letting you know that the urine of a young boy is still considered to be impure. Why? Because there is a method of the Prophet ﷺ is telling you how it must be removed, how it must be cleansed. So, within the titling of the chapter itself, the chapter of the removal, showing you how to remove them, and clarifying what is impure. The urine of this young baby was an expression that is not food predominant. It's impure. And this is how it is to be cleansed and purified. When you look at the other aspects as we mentioned, there are specific matters whether you're dealing with the saliva of the dog. There are specific methods whether you're dealing with the removal of the woman's menstrual blood. There are specific matters whether you're dealing with the urine of an individual, an elder individual. This narration is giving you a specific matter that it exits from that generality. The general method of any one of us, you and I, male or female, that would go to relieve ourselves and then cleanse and purify ourselves would not be rushed to the spring. This is not sufficient for you and I. It must be removed, then it would be in its entirety. Rush, sprinkling suffices an individual in a separate conversation. And that conversation is the individual. For example, that says, for a man, I went to go relieve myself, and he stood. And the dilemma was standing, not that there is a problem, but the dilemma in our case, day and time, is that the water would sprinkle back. And the individual says, I urinate, and I know that something sprinkled back. However, because it's sprinkled, and the garment that I'm wearing, I don't know where it is. This is a situation where you generalize the area because you can't pinpoint. Because why? You don't have knowledge of where it specifically is. So you have to generalize. Why? And you know they got on you, you just don't know where. So now you got to generalize. That will suffice you. You don't have to wash the entire area. This is a situation where you will sprinkle. And you will sprinkle in the area, predominantly where you feel this is where I feel a sprinkling back. But in general, this would not be the cleansing of the individual's private part and the performance of a stringent wash. Just sprinkling upon the private part. Male or female, this would not suffice. So this narration is an exception to the general rule of urine, but it's only for who? The young baby boy that is breastfed male, that's breastfed, that does not eat food predominantly for its production. So Habul Yameen, working on God, he concludes with that statement. There is a very beneficial statement from Sheikh Fawzan concerning this particular affair. And he says, and what you'll find, this is the ninth avenue of benefit from this narration. He says, الحديث يدل بمفهومه على أن عامل الصغير يستوي فيها الغلام والجارية. This is very important. Sheikh Fawzan said that this hadith, it indicates to us بمفهومه from what is understood. Because we mentioned before from the school of judgment, you have that which is mantur. You have that which is spoken or uttered by the narration. The Messenger of Allah, alayhi clearly telling you, oh, Jariya, clearly telling you the urine of a young girl. Not telling you the urine of a woman, the urine of a menstruating woman. He's telling you clearly who he's referencing. That is the mantur. That is what's spoken by the narration. Then there is that which is mafhum. It's not spoken, it's understood. And there is a mafhum that agrees, and then there is a mafhum, an understanding that contradicts and it opposes. So Sheikh Fawzan said this hadith of tonight's class of Hadith, he said it indicates to us and understand the line or the matter of what it is giving us an understanding. It's giving us an understanding from the mafhum. So he's telling you the point of benefit that I'm giving to you, you have to go through the door of mafhum, not manhum. If you don't, you're not going to ascertain or acquire this point of benefit. This point of benefit comes through the door of mafhum. الحديث يدل بمفهومه على أن عيل الصغير that the feces, the fecal waste of a young child, يستوي فيها الغلام والجارية, that the fecal waste of a young boy and a young girl, they are equal and similar to one another. In this narration, he mentions both. He's mentioning specifically the manhum, the urine. He's not mentioning anything about the defecation. That's coming through the line of understanding of what is mafhum. You spoke about the differentiation of the urine of a young boy being separated and moving in process of cleansing from that of the world. He didn't speak about anything concerning peace. Sheikh Fawzan said, by mafhum, what you can understand from this narration is that the feces of a young boy and a young girl, yes, they are equal and similar, mutual to one another. And he says that there's no doubt, in order for you to remove this impurity, you must wash them. لأنهما سواء في جميع الأحوال. And this is because they are equal to one another in all of their circumstances and situations. Why? لكن, however, فرقت السنة بينهما في البول. The Sunnah has separated between the two concerning urine. So what we understand by its opposite, that its species is the same. The Sunnah is separating and distinguishing between the urine of a young boy and girl, letting you know the feces of a young boy and girl, the mafhumi,
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Asyhadu an la ilaha illallah. Asyhadu an la ilaha illallah. Asyhadu anna Muhammadar Rasulullah. Asyhadu anna Muhammadar Rasulullah. Hayya 'alas salah. Hayya 'alas salah. Hayya 'alal falah. Hayya 'alal falah. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. La ilaha illallah.
Last night, we mentioned that, however, the Sunnah did clarify the distinction between the urine of the young boy and the girl. The talking about Adah, so it means that whatever is outside of that, or what I know, it is the beast of Allah. It is part of this foundation. Then we have a statement from the Shaykh Abdullah Hassan, and a custom of myself, and I like to do with despite that the statements they may carry or they may mirror one another. It is for the comfort of the listener, the individual in class, to understand that this is not just a statement that is from one of certain scholars. However, this is a statement that is learned and carried by others. This is from Shaykh Abdullah Hassan, the same narration. He says, what is taken from this narration in terms of what's the benefit? He said, he said, what is taken from this narration is that the basis of rulings and verdicts concerning a young boy and girl, and they are the same. So the separation of the sunnah of them concerning illumination, it is an indication to us that whatever is outside of that, this is an exception to what is the general rule. So this affords us that understanding, as Sheikh Yameen or Sheikh Fawzan was saying, the mafhum. We understand that by what is spoken by the narration, the urine of a young boy and girl is separated between the two of them in terms of their purity and the likeness of how they are cleansed and purified. The mafhum of the narration, because the sunnah separates between them and urine, it lets us know the rest of the rulings concerning a young boy and girl, they are similar. They are mutual to one another. But that is the basis, that is the foundation. هذا هو صلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى اله وصحبه اجمعين سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك اشهد ان لا اله الا انت استغفرك واتوب اليك والسلام عليكم ورحمه الله وبركاته.
Yeah.
Oh, you talking about
This, yeah. That's what I'm talking about. Ending the stream, yeah.